right, turning now to the final night of the RNC, where former president and 2024 nominee Donald Trump gave his first speech since Saturday's attempt on his life. He accepted his party's nomination and spoke sort of unity, while also repeating the attacks and false claims that have helped divide the country.
So tonight, with faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, the night also included speeches and appearances from Trump's family members and some celebrities like Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock. There was also a touching moment where he saluted Corey Comparatori, the firefighter who died during last weekend's rally. He had his uniform on stage, actually. And during his speech, Trump spoke about the triumph he felt after being shot last weekend.
Many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was. When I rose, surrounded by Secret Service, the crowd was confused because they thought I was dead, and there was great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. They didn't know I was looking out. They thought it was over. But I could see it, and I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight."
Well, CBS News campaign reporter Jake Rosen is joining us now from Milwaukee. Looks like they have a new chant now, Jake. It's fight, fight, fight. So, prior to this speech, we were hearing that Donald Trump was reworking it. He was doing it himself, and it was going to be more unifying. It didn't. I'm curious if that's the way it came off, because it didn't seem like he spent a lot of time on unity.
Certainly for the first 20 minutes, just as someone who was there last Saturday in Pennsylvania, I think the emotion was really palpable in the room. That was the new version of Donald Trump that, as a campaign reporter who's been at dozens of his rallies in the last couple of weeks and months, I hadn't seen before. Talking in his personal experience about what happened on Saturday, what the response had meant to him, and kind of getting that internal monologue that he put into a speech about just exactly what he was feeling as the bullet hit his ear. That being said, right afterwards, and after they honored the firefighter who died, there was a quick shift back to a classic Trump rally speech at a more somber tone, for sure. He brought up the mass deportations he plans on conducting if he wins again. He brought up, President Biden, even though a spokesperson told our colleague Major Garrett right before the convention that they would not be targeting Democrats or Biden all night. So, it did turn into, by the end, a very stereotypical Trump speech here in Milwaukee.
Right. And, there was a lot of talk sort of leading up to this speech that perhaps there was an attempt at showing a softer side, another side to Donald Trump. He had his granddaughter speak. But the speeches leading up to his speech last night were pretty standard issue. It's the kind of stuff we heard during, the last RNC. I'm kind of curious, though, about how the delegates felt about what they heard. I want to play some sound.
I got to tell you, I think that incident on Saturday kind of got him, started thinking, a little different, a little bit more, I don't know, just something that about how he is now is a lot different than he used to be.
He stayed on target. You can see he's a changed man. You talk about humility. He honored the lives of the assassin bullets got and took. And that was fantastic. That was a very high point.
So I'm kind of curious about, what sort of reaction you got from the crowd.
Oh, it was a lot of that. I think just in the striking moment that was last Saturday, to just see the man himself Monday night walk out, I think spoke for itself in a lot of ways. And again, just as someone who was there with other reporters who were there, that's certainly what we felt. That being said, though, the campaign, as usual, staged his entrance kind of as a wrestling walkout all 4 nights. They had Kid Rock change, the lyrics to his song American Badass to fit the new chant, Fight, Fight, that we saw. And a lot of people who I spoke with just kind of saw it as a typical Trump speech with just a somber beginning. And I was texting delegates and politicos who are here in real time, trying to just gauge that last night. But that's kind of what I heard.
Really quickly, Jake, when we talk of unity, though, are they talking about unity within the party or within the country?
I think it's within the party. And I think when you think about where we are and when you're chanting USA, 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 it's kind of what version of the USA are you chanting for? And certainly coming off of Saturday, I thought at first, and with the Fight, Fight chants, that maybe it was, something more, a national call for unity, a national call to lower the temperature. And then, we heard the rhetoric from someone like Tucker Carlson, from other speakers who were there who have been divisive in this country and who were given a lengthy platform yesterday leading into Trump's speech.
All right, Jake Rosen, thank you so much.